All right. Introduce today's speaker. Alice Anderman is a retired United Church of Christ pastor. Alice received her master's degree in divinity degree from Lancaster Theological Seminary. Her last position was with the Winthrop Congregational Church, where she was the 47th pastor for a church that began in 1782. Throughout her nearly 40 years as a pastor of the main conference of the UCC, Alice led many mission trips. Today, Alice will share stories about medical mission teams, rebuilding houses after Hurricane Mitch, and other work that churches requested. Please welcome our very own Rotarian, Alice Anderman.
I first of all want to thank you for inviting me to share some stories about mission trips that I've done. And I want to say too that I want to thank my husband ahead of time, who went through 200, 300, 500 slides to come up with this. So he worked very hard, and none of the pictures you're seeing are his. They were taken by people who were on the mission trip. Main Conference has a really unique situation. They have a partnership with the Evangelical and Reformed Church in Honduras. And that partnership started after Hurricane Mitch, when many churches from Honduras went down, or from Maine went down to help rebuild houses. And it has been a strong partnership, and it has been going ever since. And even though I've been gone from Maine for a few years, I think they're still doing partnerships with the churches in Honduras. So with that little bit of background, I look forward to seeing number one slide, Dave.
I'm working on it.
He's working on. Well, while he's working on it, I'll tell you a little bit about the people who you're going to see. This was a very little team who went to Roatan, and we went to Roatan to help take down a church and rebuild it in another place. And the reason that we were on Roatan, which is an island off of Honduras and not on the mainland, was that at that point, it wasn't safe to go to the mainland on Honduras. They've had their ups and their downs, and we've been, when I say we in the main conference have been there probably during all of those times, but this time we just needed to go to Roatan and not do anything on the anyway. You may not see any slides. I may just tell you stories. The story about why we had a little mission trip to begin with to Roatan was because people were afraid to even go to Roatan from Maine to do a mission trip. So I ended up with 5 very brave and determined women who wanted to go down and wanted to help take that church down and rebuild it. And okay, we're there now. These are some of the women who went down with us. And the pastor, when we got down to Roatan, the pastor and his wife of the church we were working with met our plane and was shocked. He looked at us and he said, 5 women? I thought we were going to have 5 young men come down. So we were determined to show him that women can do work and they can do it well. And we did. So this is our group. And the next slide that you will see, we flew from San Pedro Sula over to Roatan on a very little plane. And you will probably see a picture of that plane. and realized that it certainly was one of those little ones that you never forget when you fly on it. I'm not sure what, I'll just go on, and Dave can catch us up where my story continues. We went to, the first thing we did in the morning after we got there was we went to the old church, which was in the middle of a town. It was built on property that the church didn't own. And they needed to move it out of town. They bought a lovely site in the countryside to move the church to. So our job was to take it down. And we worked with the Hondurans. I think our main tools were a hammer and a crowbar. And everybody worked together. That's one of the things that I just love about Hondurans, is that we all work together. We're all part of the team, and that means all ages work together. And if you do get to see some of these pictures, you will see that lots of kids were there working with us. And the kids' job, as we were taking the church down, was to gather the nails, because they saved everything. They saved every nail that we yanked out of the wood as we were taking the church down. And we worked on that for about 2 or 3 days. We got it down. We got all the walls down. We got the roof off. The kids picked up all the nails. We loaded it in a big van that belonged to a local person, and they lent it to the church so we could move all that material out into the countryside where we would start to rebuild. And we rebuilt with everything we took down from the old church. And we worked probably 2 or 3 more days. And by the time we left Honduras to come home, most of the walls of that church were up. And again, we worked together, and the kids were there and they were helping out. They were wonderful. They would get you this or that, whatever you needed. And they had a little shelter, which you would see in one of the pictures, where they did a little school for the kids, so that there was one person in there teaching the kids in this shelter to protect them from the sun, while the rest of us were working together. Let's see. By the time we finished this mission trip, this first one, maybe we have something now.
Yeah.
Is that going to move? No. Part of our mission trips have always included working on some building project and doing a medical clinic or working with a school. And we met ahead of time with the people in the church, and they told us what they needed. We didn't go down there and say, this is what we think you need, but rather we listened to them, and then together as partners down there, we worked together to carry out their mission requests. So after I'm sorry. After we finished that first mission trip, went back to Maine, and 2 years later, we did a really big mission trip back to Roatan again. It was 4 or 5 churches working together. I think we had 30-some people who went on that mission trip, which is really the typical size mission trip we had before in Honduras. And we went to continue to work on the church that was in the process of being built. Still, after 2 years, everything wasn't done. And we also did a really big medical mission. And you will see pictures of people waiting to see our doctor. I mean, it seemed to me like there were 50, 75 people in line at a time waiting to see our doctor. Our medical team included a doctor, a physician's assistant, and I think 3 nurses. So we were well equipped to meet the needs of, or most of the needs of, the people who came to see us. And one of the things that I always think about when when we do mission trips is that often when people see a doctor, that is the first time they've seen a doctor. And so there are a variety of needs that doctor, tries to meet at that time. But there are lots of people who have no kind of medical attention at all in their lives. And so these mission trips that include a medical component are really important. So we did one medical component in the church, the newly built church. And then we also went out into the jungle area, because this was all jungle around where the new church was built. And there was a little building out there that had been a school, and we turned that into a medical clinic. And so then we went out there, and again, we had lots and lots of people come to visit us and to get the attention of our medical staff. Also on that second mission trip we went on, we continued some of the work that the Hondurans had worked on while we were gone. And part of what we did was dig, and we dug a big ditch that would house the foundation for a retaining wall for the church. We got it. Okay, I'm going to that's the little plane that we were on. In fact, that little plane, they had the door open when we were flying, and so we could look out the door and see what was out there.
Tell us what year was this?
This was 2014.
First time.
Yeah. Oh, 2012. Okay. Okay. So this is the airport, and this is what we saw. This is what Roatan looks like. It's gorgeous. It's, if you go into Old Brick Gardens and you go into their conservatory, that's what it's like all over Honduras. This is a picture of the nails. And you see that one little red container up there. Well, those are the nails the kids collected that we used. And of course, it also has a picture of the hammer. That was a necessity.
It's straightened to use nails and reuse them.
Yeah, yeah. So, and this is the pastor and his wife greeting us as we arrive. And here we go. We start right away working on taking this building apart. And these are just pictures of the work we were doing together to take the building apart. And you could see the women there working away on yanking out the nails and pulling the wood down and taking the roof off. And so again, you can see, this is what we did on our building project. That is, I think that's part of the roof that we're moving. And again, you can just see pieces of the building as it comes down. Now, all the time we're working, there are kids all over the place, and they made friends with us. I mean, some of the kids picked out one person, and we were like their special friend the whole time we were there. This is loading all the pieces of the old church into the van and taking it out to the area. This is where the new church is going to be built. You see that kind of right in the middle. You can see that where they've been doing digging. That's where the new church went. And this is the pastor's wife, just very happy that we are there. You can see some more of the area where the church was built. And here we are. We're now putting back together what we had taken apart. And there you can see we're making great progress. And it took all of us women and a few men to hold up some of those walls as they were nailed back together.
Where did the men were?
They were the Hondurans.
Okay.
Yeah, whenever we do a mission trip, when I say we, it would have been the main conference churches. We always worked in partnership with the Hondurans. And it wasn't just men, it was men, women, and kids. Always were part of what was going
Was
on.
it just women from your church that went the first time?
Yes, that was because the other people were worried about the situation in Honduras. So you can see these are women from my church. That was the little school area for the kids. You can see the chairs. You can see where they had a little board where they could draw on for the kids. And here's some of the kids. And they were just so much fun. And one of our people playing with the kids, mom and kid. Here we are putting a wall up. Another kid. It just, it's a whole town affair when you do a mission trip. It's not just, kind of one place in the town, but rather everybody gets together. And they cooked for us on the spot. So you see some pictures. This woman was one of the cooks. So they cooked for us outside, and they had big tables set up then for us to eat our lunch and our dinner outside on the site. Now, this is just one of the schools that we attended, we visited. We collected stuffed animals for the kids from Maine, and we distributed the stuffed animals, and then we helped. We went there for the day, and whatever the teacher wanted us to do, we would do to help with the education program for that day. And then there was another school in the same area that was a bilingual school. And we connected with the bilingual school. We connected with the principal of the bilingual school who worked with us in the building. But this was really an important connection because on our next mission trip, we had about 15 or 20 teenagers from the bilingual school who acted as translators for the medical mission. So they were there to be able to translate for us. So like the partnership and the relationships we made the first trip really helped us as we continued when we came down the second time to work on rebuilding the church. That's the principle.
That's not, this is the first.
Yeah, okay.
Somebody's got to scramble.
Yeah, okay, let's go on, Dave. Okay, that's just, oh, okay. I know where we are. They figured on Wednesday we needed a day off. And this was usually typical that one day we would have off. And they wanted us to see Roatan. They were so proud of their island, and they wanted us to see all the beautiful beaches and, all the tourist places. They wanted to take us there so that they could show them all. Well, one of the places they took us to was a zip line. Have any of you ever done a zip line? Well, I'm never doing it again. Yeah, that was really, for me, that was really scary.
Cindy's all set.
But yeah, Cindy was jumping in. She loved it. She loved it. Everybody else did, but I didn't. This boardwalk takes us to a boat, and we got on this boat on our day off. It was a little island off of Roatan. We went to the island, and the island had a zoo, and it had all sorts of native animals in the zoo. You could see the monkeys, and that's not the monkey, it's a person, but the different kinds of cats, and so we enjoyed the zoo. And again, everywhere we went, we saw lots of iguanas. They were all over the place. And we took a different little boat ride around the island, so you could see us there. And there were like little streams around the island. And we went on a boat ride around the island. And then these are more of the animals that we saw in the zoo, more iguanas. Yeah, wherever you'd sit down, you probably would meet an iguana. We had lunch one day at a restaurant that a member of the church owned. And so he treated us all to lunch at his restaurant. So that was a really special time for him and for us. And this is Wendy. She ordered a fish. Can you see how big that fish is? She couldn't believe how big that fish was, and if she could even eat it all. And he was sitting next to her. I don't remember his name, but he was just cracking up because Wendy was so she's taking a picture of the fish. She wanted to take it home to show her husband what kind of fish we ate in Honduras. And there we are. Now we're back on the job again. And again, we're nailing up, putting up the walls and that we had moved. And we're making progress. You can see some of those walls there. You can see that red roof that we saw before in town. That red roof is ready to go up. And this is a sign which I think we helped them put it up. Pardon?
Evangelical and Reformed Church, new life.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And again, it's just more. There goes the roof up. And there goes a wall up, another wall up. We're hammering away. We're getting those studs together. Just keep working away. And you can, you can see there was one necessity that they made sure to take care of for us. And there's a wall, another wall. We're getting there. We are definitely making progress. And as you can see, everybody is just working together and so happy that it's happening. They waited a long time. The people in Roatan waited a long time for people from Maine to come down and help them. And so they were so happy that we were there. And we were happy that we were there too.
That's the sanctuary.
Yeah, and that's Cindy sweeping the floor of the sanctuary. So somewhere in that week, they put in a cement floor. I can't remember when that happened, but
Before you came.
Was it before we
already there.
came?
The slab was there.
and again, here's lunch being prepared for us. The tortillas and lots of vegetables and fruits. And again, the kids were around watching and helping with cooking and whatever else was needed. That little kid was enjoying lunch ahead of time. And then we're back on the job again, putting up more walls. You can see on this picture, you can see where they dug out of, it's like a hill, and they dug out of the hill to put the wall, the back wall of the church in. And again, the kids are there. More kids. And there we are taking a break from our work, maybe connecting with what we need to know to do next. Yeah, the minister's wife, was there with me. And we see more kids. Yeah, these are the cooks, except right in the middle, there is a cook from our mission team. Linda really wanted to cook with the other cooks, and she wanted to learn how to cook like the Hondurans cook. So that's where she was a lot of the time. One of the things that we all did is we had different jobs. There were multiple roles that we did. That's the minister's wife again. And there we are enjoying a meal. And look there, we're all holding up the top of that wall. And we're really pleased when it could stand up by itself and we didn't have to stand there and hold it up.
The woman standing on the chair, one of the cooks, was in an earlier picture.
Yeah. And there's the roof. It will get up there. And it was really hot there, so people would take breaks in the shade to kind of get rejuvenated for the next part of their work. Now, this is 2 years later. This is men. building, digging out that trench. You may notice the one in the middle. I guarantee you've all met that person in the middle, digging away. This is a picture of people waiting in line for our medical clinic. There were just, and this is our doctor. Now, did you recognize him? Go back to see our doctor. He's out there digging, and Dave told me he was really strong. He was probably one that had the most strength to do that digging. But then he shifted roles, and he was there with our medical clinic. And we treated kids. This was somebody who was in the church helping to work, who took advantage of having a doctor and went in to see him. Again, we brought all kinds of medical supplies. We had one person who worked with the kids who were waiting in line to see the doctor, and she had them draw pictures. And that line of pictures were drawn by kids waiting to see the doctor. And there's another one of his patients. And this is a picture of our medical team, some Hondurans, and the young people who have the violet shirts on are from the school, the bilingual school. These are our translators for the medical clinic, and they worked with us. I don't know how we could have done it without them. Again, there's our doctor working with somebody. There's one of the pictures the kids drew as they were waiting. And then Cindy's helping to hand out bandages or whatever the doctor said they needed. Cindy was there to help them out.
This is back at the church now.
Okay, we're back at the church. Yeah. Some of the kids. That was one of our nurses working with a couple Hondurans. And they're more of our translators. See, it was totally teamwork the whole time we were there. That's the little house in the woods where we also had a medical clinic. And we had our physician assistant go back the next year with her husband. I think he was a doctor. And they went to that little building in the woods and did their own medical clinic, kind of an extension of what we had started. Again, this is more of the medical clinic. This is inside the church. And you could see the cement floor and like the chancel area where that bed is laid out. And they're taking care of the kids. And this is more giving, they couldn't give kinds of medicine that would demand a prescription, but they could give people aspirins and like Pepto-Bismol, things for their stomach. And then this is in the church, there was a drum set, which they always used in worship. They had wonderful, very lively worship. And so this kid took a break from working and decided he was going to try the drums. And then this last one is one of the musicians who did the music for the church services. And so that's it.
So they must have electricity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did have electricity, right? I'm not
More
sure.
reliable in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, yeah. So, I guess what I would, just like to again say that it was wonderful to work together. It was wonderful to feel like we all grew and learned new things. And for everybody, both the Hondurans and all the mission teams that went, everybody was a different person at the end of the mission team or the end of the mission trip. They weren't the same. They had grown, they'd experienced things, they've seen things, and they met wonderful people both ways. Okay. Anyone have any questions?
When's the last year that anyone's gone down? Last 2 years, they haven't gone down, right?
I don't know, because I left Maine. So I'm not sure, that's why I'm not sure, Jackie, what they're doing in Maine now.
The trips had stopped earlier because of the political situation. A lot of corruption. You may have heard that there was a recent election. The person who had been president was defeated and then was indicted in the US on drug charges. And there were parts of Honduras that were just, nobody, even Hondurans didn't want to go. And the people, the contacts in Honduras at the church there didn't feel like Americans would be safe. And then, so it was about 16 or 17, I think, that happened. We were still living in Maine when the trip stopped, but it was around the time 17 or 18 they stopped. And then they hadn't started up before COVID. So I'm not sure that the latest status on those trips.
This is an island off of Maine.
It's an island off of the mainland of Honduras. A lot of cruise ships go there. And some of the people in the church do, part of their livelihood is the shore excursions from cruise trips. That's why the line, the zip line, I was gonna say jump line. The zip line was there to entertain cruise ship passengers, but they wanted to show what things are. And just off of this island is one of the premier diving places in the Western Hemisphere. There's some Caribbean reef there. It's not quite the same as the reef off of Australia, but
I think it's maybe second.
it's not far behind.
And we went there and we snorkeled. I mean, that was another thing. They took us, they wanted us to, we don't have any pictures of it, but we got to snorkel at that reef, which was really, really neat. Yeah.
Were you down there at a time of the year where the bugs weren't bad? Because you got that heat and humidity, or you guys all had, short sleeve shirts on, even shorts. I'm kind of surprised at that.
Yeah.
I'm sure they found you sometime.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
We were there in May. This trip, in fact, probably it was just this time of year when we were down there for this trip. But I have been on trips I know I've been there over New Year's. I've been there over Thanksgiving. I've been there in August and September. I'm trying to remember when the bugs were bad, but believe me, there were times when they were really bad. Yeah.
Because I was not attending meetings in person in your early stages with us as Rotary. Could you fill us in on your background of?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a retired United Church of Christ pastor, and I mostly served churches in Baltimore, in Maryland, and Pennsylvania and Maine. And Dave and I met in Baltimore. We were neighboring pastors, and we became more than neighboring pastors. And our kids were born in Baltimore. And so I have served churches with Dave and without Dave. Dave would say, we have his and her churches. When we met, we had his and her churches. And when our kids were born, we had his and her churches. And that doesn't work so well with a family when, if you're familiar, churches seem to have a lot of meetings at night. So we were constantly having to get babysitters for the kids. So Dave and I got this idea that maybe we could work together. And one of us could be home with our kids at night. So that's when we moved from Baltimore to Pennsylvania. And for 13 years, Dave and I shared one church, and that worked out really well. because then we could be with our kids. You know, it's a challenge to figure it out. You know, how can it work for your family, and how can you be the kind of minister you need to be? And then it was time when the kids were ready for college. We had to split. We were telling people we're splitting, and they looked at us like, what? We said, we're just splitting professionally. We need 2 churches again to send our kids to college. So then we served 2 separate churches. So we've really, in my ministry and Dave's ministries, we've had a variety of experiences, small churches, very large churches, and, you know, churches in between. I could say this too. I was ordained in 1976. In fact, today is my ordination anniversary. So thank you. So I was in ministry a long time. And when I started, there weren't many women. But, you know, it has changed over the years. Oh, does that help you? Okay.
Allison, did you go any other missions other than Honduras over your years?
Yes.
Where else were you?
I did a mission trip to Belize, again, in Central America. I worked with Heifer Project there. I was there for, I think, 3 months in Belize. That was mostly kids on that mission trip. Teenagers. And at that point in Belize, there was 1 paved road in the country. I know it's, you know, it's in a lot better shape now. And our focus was, we were building a 4-H center for the area, I don't know, in the middle of the country. And we helped build a 4-H center. We took care of chickens and rabbits. We built fences. I remember we built benches. Somebody was talking about benches.
Right.
We built benches. And I can remember taking chickens that we raised at the 4-H center. Oh, we must have gone, I bet 4 or 5. I'm trying to think how, it was like we left in the morning and we got where we were going late afternoon to deliver the chickens. And that was a wild trip because, again, the roads weren't paved. So that was,
US mission trips too.
pardon?
You did trips in the US too.
I did, and we did one to Puerto Rico and worked with the Church of the Evangelical Reformada de Puerto Rico, I think. And that trip was college kids. I did that trip with college kids. And then I've done some trips with Habitat for Humanity in New Hampshire and Vermont. And Dave did one in, was that Heifer Project? Okay. So we've done a variety of mission trips. And I am so committed to helping people have a hands-on mission experience. It really just changes their lives. You know, you talk about what it would be like if you were somewhere, but when you're actually there and you're working with the people, it makes a big difference, a really big difference. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. That was awesome. Really interesting. Glad we finally got the pictures working so that we could see what your experience was like there. Well, next week we have no meeting, reminder again. And then we have our speaker on June 6th is Pat McBride, is that his name? who apparently worked for the Bucks, the Packers, and the Brewers. And he's also the author of a book called The Luckiest Boy in the World. So he'll be our speaker next week. We also, the week after that, on June 13, is our Madison South Rotary Foundation annual meeting. So make sure that you're here for that. There will be elections and other stuff. And Steve Fine had his hand up.
We got 10 happy dollars here. Happy birthday.
10 birthdays.
Oh, happy birthday, Dante.
Oh, yeah.
A trampoline party for a 10th birthday. To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dante. Happy birthday to you. All right. Well, we will see everyone in 2 weeks and have a happy Memorial Day.